Where did you go to high school? A question almost every St. Louisan knows all too well. Many older people you ask this question may have a rather disheartening answer, such as being destroyed, but others may have just been left to rot. These schools are not thought of or talked about frequently now, other than from grandparents to grandchildren, recounting their glory days. But why were these buildings closed, vacated, and left to rot? That's what I couldn't stop wondering to myself as I was driving down Virginia Avenue, and I noticed a building that would catch my attention and captivate me for over 2 years to come. It was the Castle, the one and only
Grover Cleveland High School.
Built by William Ittner, a renowned architect of his time, responsible for many St. Louis public school buildings, with over 430 buildings nationwide and 35 national landmarks. In 1912, Ittner began moving forward with his idea for the castle, as he called it. Cleveland was built during the rise in the necessity of education with ongoing World War I and people in search of a way out of economic struggle or poverty cycles through education. Cleveland had an original graduating class of 35 students, but the Cleveland population would grow to more than 67 times its original size within 25 years. Cleveland High School was one of the first few public high schools to show up in St. Louis, and with the nickname the Fighting Dutchman,
Cleveland would fight until its last breath.
After opening its doors for the first time in 1915, sports became immediately prevalent in Cleveland's culture. The opening year of the school brought Cleveland's first sports team, the girls' tennis team, and later that year, the boys' swim team brought home their first sports cup, winning a swim meet at Washington University. The following year, they won their first public high school league championship in basketball, with a score of 31-25 and a crowd of 2,000 people. The Dutchmen would continue their streak the next year, winning the public high league basketball championship in a round-robin tournament against Soldan and Central. Cleveland was founded during a time with no Title IX, when women were not generally allowed to play sports, and there were not many sports for women to play. So Cleveland developed the Girls Athletic Association, through which girls would earn points for joining sports teams and receive rewards for accumulating points. Cleveland also added a B-side football team in 1946, with the rising popularity and demand for the sport. Cleveland has a widely extensive list of pretty major sports wins, including 7 basketball regional championships, 1 state boys championship in basketball, 1 state girls championship in basketball, 1 regional foot race championship, 1 cross-country state championship, 8 baseball city championships, 1 state baseball championship, 1 track regional championship, 9 football city championships, 1 city debate meet win, 9 city swimming wins, 3 state swimming wins, 1 city golf championship, 2 city tennis championships, and even 1 city band performance cup. But Cleveland High School was by far most decorated in rivalry awards. They had won 6 city championships as a team. They had 1 girls' state rivalry championship as a team. They had 3 first-place team championships at state. They had 1 solo state champion,
as well as 5 7th Corps regional championship wins. Cleveland's nationally accredited riflery shooter was named Vincent Tiefenbrunn. He became nationally accredited by shooting 5 different bullseyes consecutively in 4 different positions. At the heart of Cleveland's social scene, as any other high school at the time, were, of course, clubs. The first of these clubs founded was an all-girls literary club named Aletheine, which means truth seeker in Greek. It was a literary group that focused on the life of Robert Louis Stevenson, short stories, and just having an all-around good time bonding. The club grew too large in just 2 years, having to make a sister group called the Filio Club in 1918. There were all sorts of reasons for students at Cleveland to join groups, whether it was just for leisure, for academic purposes, or for sports purposes. There were clubs covering all types of subjects. There were language clubs, sports clubs, musical clubs, debate clubs, cultural clubs, war effort clubs, home ec clubs, bicycle clubs, camera club, gym club, theater clubs, and even a rifle club for the kids who didn't make the team. Things were looking up for Cleveland. Students followed a 6-class rotation, having every class every day, each class lasting 50 minutes, with a break for a short advisory after second period and lunch before or after fourth period, depending on what grade they were in. All students were required to take an extracurricular class of their choice, such as weights, gym, theater, band, arts, or many other classes. To signal the end of the school day, there would be 3 different dismissal bells, one for each floor of the school, going from the ground up to prevent crowding in the halls and locker rooms. As social life was a massive part of Cleveland, and almost all students had a sport, club, or some sort of extracurricular to do after school. After and before school, students who were members of the riflery team or club would often bring their rifles onto public buses on the way to their house, and nobody would bat an eye. Oh, how times change. 1916 was not only the year that Cleveland opened its doors for the first time, but also the pilot run of Cleveland's yearbook, The Beacon. The Beacon also doubled as a senior book with literary writings and pictures of the seniors. It started coming twice a year, but was changed to once a year when Cleveland became an ROTC academy. The Beacon was entered into a yearbook contest in 1930 where it won first place, as well as in 1933 and 1934. In the 1980 school year, Cleveland was partnered with Soldan High School to share students under a desegregation plan in the South Side. The move boosted black enrollment in Cleveland to 42% black students, when the students at Cleveland had previously been a 97% white school. Resident students of Cleveland fought back against the merger, boycotting classes and getting in heated debates about the mascot, the Dutchman, which newcomers said was racist. Bricks were thrown at Cleveland buses transporting black students to their homes, but not everything was violent. In early September of 1980, about 200 white students, mostly females, walked out of the school building, stood outside, and boycotted class to protest incidents of sexual and racial harassment that had occurred in only the first 10 days of school. They stood outside for 3 hours until the principal agreed to talk to them about the problem. After the partnership with Soldan, Cleveland attendance rates started to drop drastically, especially in white students, until they had to move into the Pruitt Military Academy building in 2006 to compensate for dropping class numbers and not enough incoming money. After only 4 years in the new location, it moved again in 2010 to the Southwest High School building, before ultimately closing in 2021 due to lack of students and funding. The Cleveland Room is completely run and taken care of by Cleveland alumni, and if you visit, they will be more than happy to answer any question that you have for them. Somebody especially memorable that I spoke to while I was there was Miss Patty Lewis, an alumni of Cleveland High School, graduated in '72. Miss Lewis is the co-chair of the Cleveland Alumni Association, which puts on events for alumni and runs the ever-growing Cleveland Room. The Alumni Association works in most of their free time to organize events or to keep the Cleveland Room nice and tidy. They have a bulletin that comes out every so often called the Clevelandite. The Clevelandite has a wall of fame on the cover, honoring people from different categories for their outstanding work in reflection of the Cleveland spirit. It also has information about class lunches and alumni events that other people are putting on. Miss Lewis was truly heartbroken by the state of her once beloved school. After seeing the work of scrappers, vandals, and weather, the place she once walked the halls making lifelong connections and learning lessons that would guide her through. Miss Lewis described to me how she'd often stay at school rather than go home. just because she'd wanted to be with her friends. And it's truly heartbreaking to me. The once mighty castle, roamed by over 3,000 at one point, now has sagging ceilings, rotting floors, shattered windows, and graffiti at every turn. So what'll happen to this beautiful shell of a building? A news article from St. Louis Public Radio describes how developer Chris Goodson met with residents of the Cleveland neighborhood to discuss plans for the renovation of the shell of the building, in an attempt to bring life to the Dutchtown area. He was met overwhelmingly with positive support from the residents, who he says that he will be sure to work openly with on this project. We're not sure exactly what will be to come, but we hope benefit the entire neighborhood and embody the Cleveland spirit. But for now, if you want to see a true example of the Cleveland spirit, I would suggest visiting the Cleveland Alumni Association, or the Cleveland Room, located in the Carondelet Historical Society.